You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hi, and thanks so much for joining me once more on episode number 122 of Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Quite a few of our recent shows about the AT have featured some of the older hikers, and there will definitely be more of those in the future, but this week is certainly a young man's show. Our main guest this week is Michael Duncan, or Crispy, who did his thru-hike in 2017, while the new member of Mighty Blue's class of 2019 is Matthew Ansart, a terrific 21-year-old guy. So, two young men who, between them, are about two-thirds of my age. Funnily enough, this wasn't planned, but I think it's a great illustration of how varied your companions might be when you pitch up at a shelter on any day on the Appalachian, or indeed on any long-distance trail. When I was out there in 2014, I spent several happy hours and days in the company of a great young man, Littlefoot, who was just 17 years old. That's part of the wonder of the thru-hike. You can meet anybody, anywhere. Just be open to meeting new people and they will be there for you to meet. Trust me. Michael Duncan reached out to me and I could tell from his message that he had a story to tell. In fact, the conversation went longer than normal, but I was happy about that because Michael really bared his soul at the end. Michael will be along soon. As I said before, we'll be speaking with Matthew Ansart after Michael, and he gave me the opportunity to tell you something that I haven't announced before. Matthew will be along after Michael. We also have a short chapter of The Year We Seized the Day by Elizabeth Best and Colin Bowles. With the longer interview, the shorter chapter fitted in quite well. Our characters are through the Meseta and enjoying the beautiful city of Lyon. By the way, my niece Laura has a cold, so I want to thank her for not only getting the episode done, but also for making me laugh so much while I was editing. When I told her how funny she was, she suggested I might put together a selection of outtakes. Good idea, but it may take some time. We'll see. Lastly, before we get on to it, a bit of a confession. My side of the audio in the interview with Michael is not good. I simply could not get my microphone to work, so I had to use the inbuilt one on the laptop. I could, of course, have left it at that, and you would have felt sorry for me because, I didn't have very good sound. But I've really got to fess up. This morning, when I started editing, I discovered that I hadn't actually turned the microphone on. I mistook the fact that the blue light was on and as an incorrect fact that the mic was on. This was a mistake on my part. I'm so sorry, Michael. I've tried to mute me as much as possible because Michael makes so much sense in our chat. Here he is. Okay, I'd like to introduce you to Michael Duncan, or Crispy. This is a great name. Michael wrote to me incredibly enthusiastically about the trial, and I thought he had a story that would be interesting to you all. Hi, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing well, Steve. How are you doing?
Not too bad. So I think we really should start with the name. Why on earth are you Crispy?
Yeah, so I was kind of the designated fire starter, if you say, in my group early on. I kind of started hiking with 3 or 4 people, and from the get-go, as soon as we got to camp, I was the first one to start making fires, and I tend to get a little carried away when I build the fires. So I used to think it was a good idea to pick up sticks that were already on fire and try to shuffle them around, thinking it was some sort of a good idea that the sticks would burn better if I just moved them a little bit. But it resulted in lots of blisters, lots of burns. So yeah, people started calling me Crispy because my fingers were always very crisp, very crisp.
Why the enthusiasm to build fires? You're not the sort of closet arsonist, are you?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. No, I don't know. I've always been a fire starter. Growing up in summer camps, always learning how to build them the proper way. So all my friends would use paper and all these things, but I was always I learned how to build a fire just using wood and a match. And I was always fascinated how you could have one match and it could result in a big fire. And so it kind of was always a big thing for me. But
I'm impressed.
Yeah, but on the AT after 10, 12 hours of hiking, it's a lot easier just to burn a page of your AWOL guide. So that always ended up being the go-to.
Yeah, quite right. And when we spoke previously, you told me something kind of strange for a young guy. You said that you'd never ever had a game console as a youngster. I can't imagine there are many people of your age, and you're 24 years old, aren't you?
And I'll be 25 in a month.
All right. And you'd never had a game console. Why was that?
It's a good question because my brother had them, so they were in my house. My brother was a big gamer with the sports games and the Call of Duty games, but I never found it interesting. I would maybe once every 6 months I'd play one game of like FIFA or Call of Duty against him, and he would destroy me. And I would remember why I didn't. I remember why I didn't like them, and I would just get up and go do something outside. I grew up around a neighborhood full of kids that enjoyed playing kick the can and hide and seek and things like that. And so I just never really had the desire to sit in front of a screen and play games, which is I can't say there was one event that caused that. I just grew up not enjoying it, I guess.
Wow, that's kind of unusual. And I know that you used to go to summer camp when you were in the earlier grades at school, and you loved for some reason sleeping in a tent. What was it
Right.
about that environment that really grabbed you? Because it was a very clear sign that you said that. You really loved being in a tent, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, for one thing, I think a lot of I was just having this conversation with my wife last night. I think a lot of what we love and what we're passionate about in our 20s and 30s is a result of what we loved and were passionate about in our younger years. And I started off going to 2 week long summer camps by myself when I was 7. So I
All
didn't,
right.
I'd be without my
Is,
parents for two
is that
weeks.
young for America to be doing that? Young for Americans to be doing that? I mean,
I'd
what's the normal age to go to summer
say,
camp?
yeah, I'd say like maybe 10 years old is where you would typically see that happen. But I started when I was 7, and so I got the early exposure and um, from a young age just really enjoyed like you said, something about being in a tent. And I loved building forts. I loved even in my room with blankets and things, I was that would build forts, and I loved sleeping in I would actually set up tents in my living room and sleep in them. I
It's a
just had this
strange job. You're a strange
yeah,
job.
I had this weird fascination with tents and shelters and things like that. So I mean, it's kind of always ingrained in me growing up, which is why I'm not a hammocker. I'm a tent guy.
All
So
right. I see. Yeah, I see. But did your parents have the camping bug at all?
they enjoyed camping with us. But I was always my dad would take us to like the local state parks, and we would do like maybe a night or two here. But I was always the guy that was kind of pushing it. And I remember going to Target and to Walmart in these little stores, and I would go straight to the sports section and find the little knickknacks, and the little kids tents when I was younger would always grab my eye. And that's typically how it happened. What kids tents are like $20 because they're not good. So I would always say, "Hey mom, can I have this one?" And she's like, "Michael, this is your fourth tent. You don't need another tent." And so
Uh,
they saw it, but they had to they had to fight it at times because I was getting a little carried away with it.
and you learned about the Appalachian Trail as a boy. Tell us about climbing Blood Mountain when you were a youngster.
Yeah, yeah. So that was I would say that was a pretty pivotal moment in my love for being outside because the camps I was mentioning, that 2 week camp was a separate camp, and so I had another 1 week camp that I went to, basically back to back. And so I came back home and went to this other camp. And this year, I don't remember the age. I think probably 8 9 years old was the year I was exposed to the AT. But what we did was, as a group of elementary/middle school kids, we were taken out on the AT to Blood Mountain, and we did 10 miles over the course of 3 days, which you can imagine how terribly difficult 3 miles in a whole day would be. But we
So what did you do? What was the plan? I mean, was it planned to be 3 days?
we just I think with the age, you have a hiker group of, I don't know, 15 20 people, and you've got to stay in a straight line. There's only 2 leaders with 15 or 20 people, and it just takes time. And you're working with middle school kids who half of them don't even want to be out there. And a lot of it was you get to Blood Mountain and you spend the day on Blood Mountain.
Oh, really? The whole day?
Yeah, so we probably got up there around 1 o'clock after, leaving. I mean, it probably took us an absurd amount of time to hike those 3 miles. We probably stopped every half mile for 30-minute breaks. I mean, I couldn't give you the exact time frame, but that's how it, more or less how it went. Because in my later years, I was a counselor doing the same thing, and we had to stop all the time for kids with malfunctioning gear and kids that weren't prepared. And yeah, so we got up there.
And none of that put you off then?
I don't know, that was a it was a weird experience for me because I took some advice from a friend of mine, genius 8-year-old, 10-year-old advice. My friend told me that he heard somewhere, you sleep with your shirt off and you're actually warmer. And I took that advice and slept in this chilly 50-degree weather with my shirt off and froze my butt off the entire night. And
Really?
I thought it was a good idea. And for most kids, that would have been the first and last experience in the woods. And for me, it was the first of many.
I'm
I found it
sure.
challenging, but I found it invigorating. I found it kind of addicting because I actually didn't sleep in a tent that night. We didn't take tents because there's that shelter up there, so we were given the option to sleep in the shelter or to sleep. I slept on the ground. If you're familiar with Blood Mountain,
I remember it well, yeah.
yeah, at the base of the big rock where the overview is, I just kind of slept on the dirt in my sleeping bag, and
No shirt.
no shirt. So I was wearing shorts and probably socks at the time, but didn't.
Mm.
I was using a backpack that one of our family friends had that was a 65 liter, and I'm 10 years old at the time, however old I was, and pack was double the size that I was. I mean, my body probably didn't even have 65 liters in it. I was just a small little kid. I was, 80 pounds carrying this 40-pound pack. It was a mess, but I took from it that, camping and backpacking is a challenge and that it's a rewarding experience because I would sit up there and look at that view for hours while other people were kind of, questioning why we were even up there.
Yeah, I'm sure. So you did school and college, and after your freshman year, you went to do mission work in Cambodia. What did that involve?
Yeah, that was just a result of not belonging in school at the time where I was. I just really felt, with the circumstances I was in, I was failing some classes just because, it was simply just I was not passionate about where I was. I was not in a good place. And so I remember hearing a now friend of mine come to my school ministry and speak about this experience that he had just had with a missionary organization called YWAM, where he was able to do an outdoor adventure discipleship school and actually spend 3 months traveling the backcountry of Arkansas and experiencing nature in all kinds of crazy ways through rock climbing and kayaking and all these things. But he had these teachers coming along and teaching with him. And after he learned and was, intentional for these 3 months, he went and spent time over in Southeast Asia. And I
All
just
right.
remember being jaw dropped and like, what the heck? This is actually a real thing. And went straight out the front door of that house, got on the phone with my mom and told her that I was dropping out of school and going to do this mission work. And she just responded with, okay. And from there, I mean, it was basically decided. I applied the next day, was accepted within a month,
Wow.
and left.
So what did your mother see in this that was good for you?
I'm
Or
sorry,
was it just that you wanted to do it? And you say, what did your mother see in this that was good for you? Why did she accept it so readily?
it's funny. I think if I had to put myself in the shoes of a parent, I think if any parent's child came to them and said, "Hey, mom, I want to go, change the world. I want to go do good for other people that don't have what we have." While it might be a little scary, the traveling aspect and the third world country aspect, like I feel like as a parent, there's nothing I'd rather hear than, not to toot my own horn, but to hear my son say that he wants to go take part in mission work.
Sure,
When there's
sure.
1,000 other things in college he could be doing that are far from good. I would, be delighted in that, but partially because at the time I was 19 years old, and by then I'd already been to over 20 countries with my family. And so they were used to traveling. They weren't fearful of the idea of being in countries that we're unfamiliar with. So that was an easy.
So what were you actually doing? What were your day-to-day stuff in Cambodia? Then
It changed from in the beginning we were we did a lot of different things. Basically, for the biggest chunk of our time, we were staying in a church teaching English and teaching English Bible classes to the students. And we would actually, on certain days, I coached a youth soccer team and guitar lessons, and other people coached or taught like art classes and things like that. Just little hobbies. We were all kind of asked what our strengths were and what we liked to do, and we were able to kind of form classes around that.
And I know that trip did something for your psyche in terms of the outdoors. It really encouraged you, didn't it, to seeking even more outdoor activities?
Yeah, because also what I didn't mention was for the first 2 weeks of being there, we slept in a village where there was like the nicest house was they were all built by the person that lives in them. They were all little shacks that they, cut down trees and they used some spare cement bricks they find laying around. They were all very poorly made shacks, but the hospitality was awesome. And so the family that was there gave us, the equivalent of their master bedroom to sleep in when we got there. But because we had a team of 8, we split into teams of 2, and we shared, used 4 different houses with 4 different families, and they each gave us their master bedroom, quote unquote master bedroom, which was just a bare room with wooden floors and wooden walls, and we slept on these wooden platforms with no pads, no blankets. We had our own little blankets and a mosquito net to cover us from the bugs, and that was it.
So going out in the AT was quite a pleasure in terms of comfort.
Yeah, it was an upgrade. I had a Thermarest Z-Lite pad to sleep on.
So did the idea of a thru-hike start forming around that time then, when you were thinking, well, this is something I'd like to do, in terms of a longer hike?
I would say the following summer is when it really formed, because I met a guy working at the summer camp I was at that had just thru-hiked in 2014. And so growing up, the idea kind of bounced around. But after hearing his stories and actually putting a face to a name and a name to a story, it was really like, okay, people do this. It's one of those things people hear. And I think that's one reason people freak out so much when you tell them that you did it, is because you're probably the first person they've ever heard of that's done it. But once you hear of somebody who's done it, it becomes more realistic and it seems more achievable. And so I thought about it and set my mind to it.
That's very true. So I presume that you were working in a regular job by now, were you? And so how were you able to get the time to do this?
Yeah, so I graduated in May of 2017, and I spent after taking that year off, I was obviously a little bit behind on my classes, and I really wanted to graduate with the friends that I of my class, because I had built all these friendships and didn't want to have to spend an additional year in college without my friends being there. And so I was determined to catch up. So in the summer of 16, I took summer classes. I took 18 hours, which in terms of at least the school I went to, that's a full semester of classes. And so I crammed a full semester of classes into 2 months, where each class was 4 weeks long. And it was just, it was very, very brutal, but I spent a lot of time by myself in my home in between classes. And it just kind of hit me one day after adding up all the stories I'd been told the previous summer and all these passions and desires I've got. I was like, okay, shoot, this is the time to do it. If I'm going to do it, I need to do it now, because there's no better time. And so I just literally decided over the course of 5 minutes that I was going to do it, and there was nobody that was going to stop me. And so I decided, again, just like the Cambodia thing, I called my parents. I said, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, I'm hiking the AT. And of course, they were awesome, sweet. It's probably not as dangerous as going to Asia, people you've never met. So
the bonus then, yeah.
Exactly.
You mentioned just now that you're married. So were you with your your current wife at the time?
Yeah, so we started dating November of 2014, and that was about 2.5 years ish before 2 years before I left for the trail. And then she was fully supportive because, a month into dating me, she knew that I had some weird obsession with being outside and adventure, and so she had already caught on to that real early. So by the time the trail came around, she was. I mean, we'd sit there and, hey, you want to come over and hang out? And she'd be sitting there watching TV while I'm on the internet just searching gear and searching Darwin videos and Dixie videos and things like that.
Is that how you worked out the gear that you were going to need then?
Yeah, yeah. She probably knows more about Dixie than she should, based on just third party hearing my videos blaring next to her.
I'm sure. So what did you do to fund the hike then? Because I presume that this isn't a cheap endeavor, is it? Not only does it cost money when you're actually on the trail, but you have to actually fund the hike itself. And
Right,
fund
right.
the gear itself. How did you raise money for the hike?
Yeah, so the year since I decided a full year before, I had time to save. But not only that, I had time to receive a lot of gifts and presents for the random holidays and birthday throughout the year. So I couple like notable things. I received my Big Agnes Fly Creek tent for Christmas, which brand new was like almost $400.
Wow.
So my parents were able to bless me with that for Christmas, and then for I had just random. I had a friend who works for I think Columbia, and Columbia owns Mountain Hardware, and he gave me a 40% off gift card that he just had like a stack of. And so I got 40%
Oh,
off a $400 sleeping bag, just things like that. Lots of gifts. But then I bartended for an entire year at a chicken restaurant at Buffalo Wild Wings, um,
yes.
and was making decent money. It would obviously have its nights, but there were some nights I'd bring home $250 in a night, and just from a 5-hour bartending shift. And so I didn't spend a penny of it. I just would put it all in this little piggy bank that I had, and I came out with 4 or 5 thousand.
Please tell me you actually had a piggy bank.
I did actually. I was at I was at
As a
the
grown man,
Salvation
excellent.
Army. Yeah, no, it was a massive piggy bank too. I was at the Salvation Army, and somebody had made this big paper mache pig. It was probably the size of like a suitcase that you would take on a vacation, and it was just this huge thing. And I got it to where, I mean, it was probably 40 pounds because it had so much change in the bottom of it, and I ended up having close to $4,000, 5,000, somewhere between there, in money, just sitting in this piggy bank.
So you got your gear, got everything together from your Dixie videos and your Darwin videos. Um, did the gear generally work out as you'd hoped, or in other words, were you making informed choices based upon what you thought you required for the trail, and you went on their recommendations? How did you actually, how did it work out for you?
I didn't. I think taking um, the the sleeping bag and the bigger pieces of gear actually were not from those videos. My pack choice actually came from a buddy of mine who he did the whole PCT in 89 days. Um,
Wow.
and he
Wow.
Yeah, he's a monster. He knocked that thing out, and I asked him, I was like, how'd you do it so fast? And he's like, well, you just got to get your weight down. And I was like, well, how'd you get your weight down? And he showed me his pack, and he had the ULA ohm, which is ULA has gotten a little more popular out on the trail, but I found that pack, and it was my third choice. I had gone through a couple Osprey packs, and I finally found this pack and just fell in love with it. And then
Good.
basically what Dixie and those people on YouTube served as for me was more of a logistics advice. I was watching and
Right.
seeing what it's going to look like to get into town and get food, seeing what it's going to look like to have your day-to-day routine, and um, really helped because it makes it a lot more personal and realistic when you can watch someone's story kind of unfold in front of you. So, seeing
Sure.
her pick up a snake with, I forgot the girl's name, but picking up the snakes with her friends and doing all these things that are just very, very much small day to day activities. It really kind of put into perspective kind of how it was going to go, and So yeah, for the videos and the people on YouTube, it was much more of a logistical thing, and it really did pay off. It prepared me in a lot of ways.
And I know you were hoping to do the trail originally with your father, but he had a knee
Yeah,
replacement. Did you feel comfortable going by yourself, or did you find somebody to start with?
yeah. So I think I did start with somebody, but it wasn't a comfort thing for me. I'm a big people person, like huge people person. I don't like to be by myself, not for discomfort, more so just I don't like it. I don't enjoy just being alone. I mean, I need alone time occasionally, but I definitely find my energy from being around friends and family and things like that. And so I as soon as I decided I was going to go on the trail, I went ahead and posted on my Facebook and said, "Hey guys, I'm going on the trail. I'm doing the AT. Who wants to join?" Post. Like, didn't think twice about it. And instantly had several responses of friends who were like, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it." And I kind of took it with a grain of salt because, none of them ended up actually wanting to do it. You don't realize what a commitment it is financially and time. But yeah, my friend Austin, actually at the time, whom I wasn't great friends with, jumped on board and was like, "Hey, I'm down." And from that moment, I mean, we just started planning. I had somebody to sit at home with and look at YouTube videos and research gear and do all these things. So we literally put about a full year of research into it,
Wow.
day after day, up until the point of leaving for the trail.
But that was quite late, wasn't it? Spring. You were on top of spring in May 2017.
Yeah, May
Why was
8th.
it quite as late as that?
Yeah, because so I graduated college on May 6th.
All right, there we are
I
then.
was
So as soon as you were done, you were gone.
right. So my friends, I lived with 5 guys in college, at the end, and they were all having this big graduation bash party with all of our families and everything. And someone was going to buy a keg, and someone was going to do this, and I was like, as fun as that sounds, every day is going to count for me. As I quickly found out in the end, every day that I had helped. So I was like, I need to get on the trail as soon as I can, so that I can make this deadline of October 15th. And I hopped on 2 days later, with Austin. And actually, something I haven't told you is I actually hopped on whiteblaze.net and was like, "Hey, me and my friend Austin are hiking the AT, but we're starting late. So if there's any, aspiring thru hikers out there that didn't, think they'd be able to do it, we're doing it. Hop on board." And actually found a guy who went to, like, out of all the people on White Blaze, went to college at the University of Georgia, you know, an hour from where I was in school. So I met him 2 weeks before the trail, and I was like, "All right, nice to meet you, and I'll meet you on Springer." And we met him on Springer, and
Oh, how cool.
so he hiked to Damascus because he had a deadline for a job. But he's not one of my best friends. He hiked all the way to Damascus with me, and there wasn't a day that we weren't together.
Yeah, nice. It's funny how that works out there. So, how were those early miles then, Michael? Was the trail what you imagined it to be, or was it completely unexpected?
It was brutal at first. I got got tendonitis in my Achilles, and so I'm a lot like Dixie. So I was like, "Hey, I want my hike to be like Dixie's." Sure enough, I got tendonitis in my Achilles.
That wasn't the bit you wanted.
It was you get what you wish for. I got to the point where, I mean, I couldn't. I think what had happened was I tore my ACL, playing soccer, not even a year before. So I had
Wow.
surgery, and 6 months later I started the AT, which is a little bizarre.
Yeah, that's a fast recovery.
Typically, it takes 6 months to even start being active and playing sports again, I was on my hike in 6 months, and so my Achilles on my right leg wasn't. I mean, I hadn't been walking much. I hadn't been
Right.
doing too much crazy stuff, and so going from your basic walking and jogging to rocks and roots, it wasn't ready for it, and it just it got so swollen and so inflamed that I mean, I could wiggle my ankle, and my Achilles was vibrating. It felt like an old stretchy rubber
Oh,
band. It was really, really gross.
but even then, you still did several long days, didn't you? Because you told me you
Yeah.
did 37 miles one day. What was that about?
So I did. That was the Achilles situation was in the beginning. It was in Georgia and a little bit into North Carolina, but I got that taken care of quickly. And it came back up in Virginia, and so I had to go see an orthopedic surgeon, and he gave me some advice to take 2 weeks off. But I quickly ignored his advice and just bought an ankle brace. And after I got the ankle brace, fully good, fully healed. It took a couple days, but it was all good. And then later on in Virginia, once I had my feet back under me, I was with a girl named Wild who I had met early on in the trail. She was currently in the Air Force, just taking a year off from the Air Force. And so she was in good shape. And my parents actually came and met us in Virginia one day. And we were like, we didn't know how far we were going to hike. So we was like, all right, we'll see you later. And cranked out 38 miles and popped out at a random trailhead, about 16 or 17 hours later.
Oh, gosh. That is amazing. I really don't know how you do it. So had Austin gone by then? Because you said you started with Austin. He was no longer there.
Yeah, so he, in Irwin, Tennessee, at Uncle Johnny's hostel. I was ahead of him, and then I got to Uncle Johnny's, and he was sitting there, and it just confused me. I was like, "Where did you come from?" And he told me that he had yellow blazed up and gotten in the car and traveled up to the hostel, and told me that he had just decided over the past 2 days that he wasn't enjoying it as much as he thought he would, and that it just wasn't for him, which is totally fine. I mean, he had adventures planned of his own, ended up going to Hawaii when he got home, but he just decided that it wasn't for him. And his words were that he wasn't thriving in the woods the way he saw me thriving, which
interesting. He saw it within you though, but he couldn't feel it in himself.
Right. And it sucked, but it was so encouraging to hear him say that he saw me thriving, which really, it reaffirmed why I was out there. I was out there because I had this passion for being outside. And when he said he saw me thriving out there, it just pushed me to keep hiking. And through the pain, through the rain and the bad weather, it was something that other people could see in me. And so that meant a lot. So I was able to kind of use his downfall as an encouragement.
So what did you do then? You were with this young woman. Did you stay with her, or did you form part of a trail family? How did that work out the rest of your hike once you were really then on your own and making plans for yourself?
Yeah, so Wild, we hiked a little bit down south, and then I didn't meet her again. We kind of got a disconnect, and I didn't see her for a couple weeks. And then I saw her up again in Virginia when we started when we did that big day and everything. But in the meantime, I hiked with Robert. His name was Price Tag. I hiked with him. He was the guy that I met on White Blaze. So he hung out with me a little bit. And it was a weird feeling leaving that hostel because I had one or two people that were there to hike with. But for the most part, I've never camped alone. Oddly enough, I'm not a big fan of the dark. It freaks me out. And so I'm like walking out of this hostel thinking, okay, so now I've got to conquer all these fears because I don't have Austin anymore. I'm not going to have Rob for much longer. So I'm going to have to camp alone, hike at night alone, all these things, which I was super excited to do because doing the AT was a great time for me to conquer any fears that I had. So I left that hostel very eager and very, with a very positive outlook, excited to do those things. And I did all of that. I'd be lying if I said I don't still dislike the dark just for the sake of being in the dark, but I camped alone. It didn't bother me. I was able to get a good night's sleep.
Even the first night you camped alone, how was that? Because I remember for me, it was a bloody nightmare. I hated it.
It's something really freaky about it. And nobody can ever put their thumb on it because I've been out there for, over 2 months or over a month, whatever it was at this point, and nothing's happened to anybody. Nothing's happened to me or anybody, but I finally decided that this night I would do it. And I was actually with some people hiking into camp, and I told them that I was going to go ahead and stop early and let them keep going just so that I could intentionally conquer this fear of mine. Because I didn't want to keep hiking because I knew it's like exercise. I knew if I didn't start it, I wasn't ever going to. So I had to get in the routine of being okay doing it. And so I did it. I started a fire early in the night. It was, I ate my dinner, and I think the key for me was I got in the tent before it got fully dark. So I didn't actually have to see that transition of light to dark, and I fell asleep, heard some noises, kind of freaked me out, heard some voices, but then I woke up the next morning and realized I was camping like 100 yards away from a campsite. And so I heard people talking, and it freaked me out, but I conquered the fear, and I was happy about it. And it set me up for a much better rest of my hike, knowing that I was able to do that.
I'm sure. So you got to the end, you got to Baxter. Who did you summit with?
Yeah, so my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, probably my wife because she made this decision. I'm just kidding. She came up to Katahdin. She visited me in Pennsylvania, at my aunt's house, who lives in Pennsylvania. My parents and Cameron, my girlfriend at the time, came up and visited me. And this was beginning of September, and her birthday was September 20th.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I was going to be missing her birthday. And so I wrote her a card and said that when I picked her up at the airport, I said, if basically, if you'd like to, I'd like to give you the birthday present of flying you up to Maine and, having you be a part of my final summit of Mount Katahdin. You know how much it's meant to me.
Very cool.
You know how long and how hard I've worked for this. And so I'd love nothing more for you to be a part of it. And so that was kind of my present to her. My parents helped me, and we flew her up there, and they all got a cabin. So yeah, after all of that, she and actually Austin flew home from Hawaii and flew to Katahdin as well and surprised me. So I was able to finish with the guy I started with and finish with my girlfriend at the time. I've got some really cool pictures. We summited on just a stunning day, totally beautiful day.
Absolutely beautiful. What date was that then?
This was October 1st.
Okay, so you took 4.5 months. That's pretty good movie anyway.
Yeah. So we and a few notable people, I think, like in North Carolina, I met, as I was telling you earlier, I met a guy named Snow in a hotel room. Me and Rob had hiked into town that day, and we hiked a 26-miler. That was our biggest day at the time, and got to this hotel in Hot Springs, and it was 10 o'clock at night, and the whole town was like deserted. And we heard some hiker voices, and we go over there, and there's just a big drunk group of hikers. At the time, just who knows what else they were doing, but they were eating and drinking and, just all partying out in the parking lot of the hotel. And they invited us in. And I went to sleep that night in an empty bed after eating all their leftover steak and shrimp and things and drinking some beer in a bed by myself, and woke up next to this guy that I thought was Robert, who I had hiked with. So to wake him up, I just reached over and just punched him straight in the arm. And he rolled over and goes, "What the hell, man?" And I looked at him, and it wasn't Robert. It was this guy Snow that I had never met. And I was like, "Man, I'm so sorry. The short hair, the bad smell, whatever it was, I thought you were Robert." Yeah. And we hiked from that hotel all the way to Maine together.
Oh, cool. But you didn't summit with him, did you?
I didn't. We hiked up to Virginia, met another guy, Yard Sale, who actually lives in the Atlanta area or Georgia with me, and he, the three of us just became this super, super tight knit group of friends. We didn't leave each other's side. We very compatible group of guys, and so we did the thing together and got up to Maine. And Snow actually, Yard Sale and I had airplane tickets already purchased, and so we had strict deadlines. And Snow didn't. And so Snow actually stayed back and enjoyed. Once we hit the Maine border, kind of stayed back and enjoyed his last week. Me and Yard Sale kind of pedal to the metal, got it done, did the 100-mile wilderness in 3.5 days, and just pounded through to Katahdin. So we actually all three summited separately, but it's funny because they left such an impact on me. We all three got the most beautiful summit days. We all three have, we send each other our pictures, and we all three have two clouds in the sky, and that's it. I mean, just nothing. No rain, no snow, no, little windy, but that's it. Just straight sun.
So you went up with your girlfriend, now your wife, and the good buddy who you started with, but not with the guys you've been hiking with. It's kind of a shame you couldn't all finish together, but it kind of happens that way very often, I know. And you're a year away from the trail now. So what has the last year been like since you left the trail? I bet you think about it all the time, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I got a tattoo of the coordinates of Mount Katahdin, just the north and west coordinates on my ankle, just because that one spot, that sign has meant so much to me for so many years. And I mean, 15 years, 20 years, I've just wanted to hike this thing. And so making it to that spot was just an amazing thing, which is why I would have waited for snow if I had the time. But once you get to Baxter State Park and you can see the peak of that mountain, there's nothing
You
in
go
the
up it.
world. Yeah, nothing's stopping you from climbing that mountain. So you're going to climb that mountain. I would have climbed it
Right.
5 times if I could have, but I got up there, and it's just this life-changing moment when you hit that sign of you think to yourself, like, I've just accomplished what I've accomplished. And that, you got that side of your thought process, but then you have the thought process of, holy crap, it's over. And,
Yeah.
I've reached the end of this journey. And that moment of reaching the end of the journey, the sadness of that moment has yet to leave me. It's something that I've carried with me because of just how passionate I was about that trip and how much I thrived, just from being outside and being one with my surroundings and conquering fears and making friends. And so here I am over a year later, and I just have this bug in me. I have this desire to do things with my life. Um,
Right.
I actually just was on Facebook before our interview, and one of my friends from the AT posted a picture. He's at the airport, and someone said, like, there's a picture on an airplane that said something along the lines of "escape." It says "Great escape, here I come," and it's like their marketing campaign. And his caption to that was, "The message here is that you're a slave, and to take a vacation, you have to escape. Life shouldn't be spent escaping. Life should be spent having fun." And that's kind of what this trip was to me. Like, 6 months makes it to where you're past an escape. You're not just on a vacation. Like, you've adapted to a lifestyle. And so
Yeah.
rather than going to work and only getting a week and a half or 2 weeks a year that I'm able to go maybe hike 30 miles of the AT, I was able to fully dive headfirst into this lifestyle of freedom and adventure, and just, whatever I made it. It was what I wanted it to be. It's not that I'm not responsible and didn't want responsibilities, because you've got to have responsibilities at some point in your life. You got to take ownership of those. But the ability to just wake up and be a hiker. Hiking's what I love, and so to wake up and do what I love for 17 hours a day, and then go to sleep and do it all over again, was all that I could have asked for and more. And so to now be working a full-time job,
Yes.
not making my own schedule, not able to take off the time that I want. I've had some severe trail depression, and some people don't experience it, but I think I took my load, and the guy who doesn't experience it, I took his load as well, because I've had a lot of it.
Are you okay now? Or are you still suffering with it now? Or are you starting to get out of it?
For me, I'm okay. I'm good. Like, I'm not just this walking ball of depression. I'm a very happy, positive person. And so you wouldn't just talk to me and know that I've got it going on, but it's a big internal thing. I talk to my wife about it a lot, and I talk to the guys I hiked with. I'm okay. I'm good. Everything's fine. It's just, you're just not the same. It's almost like not to take anything away from these people, but it's almost like a PTSD type thing, where it follows you everywhere you go. Once you've done it, it's on your mind. You can't forget it. It's just the opposite of that, where I want more of it.
I can say to you, just I felt a lot of the same, and part of the reason to going back is because I wanted to feel that thing again of being so
Right.
tied to the trail. But I think you should somehow try to shift your focus and look back at it with such joy, which I'm sure you do anyway. And you sound so passionate about it as well, and not let it get you down. I know it's easy to say let it get you down, because it's such a it was such a life affirming thing to do this trail, as far as I was concerned. So you're
Right.
going to try to get your wife out on a trail at some stage, and so she can feel the same as you feel as down as you do.
Absolutely. I'm gonna ruin her life the way I ruined mine. I saw that book. I haven't read it yet, called "How the AT Ruined My Life," and I can't sum it up like in one sentence better. It ruins your life in such a good way. But yeah, I'm gonna.
Exactly.
She wants to do the PCT with me. She's got
Right.
hopes and dreams to thru-hike with me, and we just got married 2 weeks ago, and so
Yeah.
we're. Thank you very much. We're we're not wanting to have kids right away. So we're going to leave ourselves time to do these things. And I'm thinking within 3 to 5 years, as long as that sounds to me, I think it's pretty reasonable. Save some money. So we've got those plans. And in the meantime, I'm making the best of every day. I'm getting out when I can, hiking Blood Mountain, hiking Cow Rock, these little areas around Georgia. And I've actually got plans this summer to go do the Wonderland Trail around Mount Rainier in Washington.
Nice.
And that's a challenging hike. It's internet said it's 93 miles, supposed to take you about 10 to 12 days, but I'm hoping to knock it out in 7 or 8 and kind of get that feeling back under my feet. So.
Well, look, thanks for sharing your story. You're very honest about it, and I knew this was coming toward, when we got towards the end of the interview. I knew we were going to talk about how it got you down a bit, but look back with in fondness, and that expression about how it ruined my life in a good way is something you need to really focus on. It's the good way bit. You'll never get over it. You're quite right, but you never get over it in a good way. So I'm glad it had that impact upon you.
Right. Well, thank you so much for saying that.
Okay, buddy. Well, you take it easy, all right? And I hope you will speak again sometime.
Yeah, you too, Steve. Thanks so much for your time.
Cheers then. Bye.
Bye-bye.
What an interesting young man. He learned logistics more than anything else from Darwin and Dixie. And I can see that. A lot of people look at their gear and try to work out their gear from them, but I think he kind of knew what he wanted, but he just wanted to work out how to do this stuff. And how about meeting his hiking buddy by punching him in the arm, in bed, the first time they met? Class. And I thought his comments at the end were really touching. The sadness of the moment that it ended has never left him. As we've said before, be careful what you wish for when you do this. Hiking any long-distance trail can have implications. It will certainly have a lasting effect, far further than you may imagine. Yet I've never met anybody who would say that they'd rather they hadn't hiked the trail. Now it's on to the class of 2019 and another clear-eyed young man, Matthew Ansart. Here's Matthew. Hi, Matthew. How are you?
Yes, sir.
You good?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad, yeah. Now, we start by people introducing themselves. Your name, which we know already, your age, where you live, and your start date on the AT if you've already chosen it.
Sure. So, like you said, I'm Matthew Ansart. I'm 21 currently. I live in Tennant's Harbor, Maine. It's a small fishing village off the coast. And I don't have a firm start date, but I'm thinking around March 15th to 20th is the area I'm going for.
Okay, so did you say you're 21? I didn't quite catch that. Was it 21?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay, right. By the way, I'm Steve. You don't have to call me sir. I know it's a very polite thing, but don't worry about it.
Good. All right.
And is this your first long distance hike?
This is. Yep.
Really? So I'm sure you're getting excited for it because I know when I was 61 when I did it, not 21, and I got so excited my first my thought of a first long distance hike. So how long has the AT then been on your radar?
So it's been on my radar for I'd say about a year and a half maybe. I worked with a outdoor education group, and while I was out on one of the trips, it was actually over Easter break, and my mother had sent me a book called Hiking Through about a gentleman who liked the Appalachian Trail.
Paul Stutzman. Was it Paul Stutzman?
Yep, it was Paul Stutzman.
Funnily enough, Paul has given me permission, by the way, to read his book on the trail, which I'm going to do after I finish the Camino book. So just say on my show, I recorded it on my show. Yes, it was a great book. Yeah. So that had an impact upon you, did it?
Yeah. So I picked it up and started reading it, and I just could not put it down. And there was just something about the idea of, packing up life and just having one goal to just walk north that really just caught my, caught at my heartstrings and just really made me want to drive for it. So. And
it was always going to be the AT once you read that. You didn't want to think of the PCT or the CDT as a first hike?
Yeah, no. It being my first through hike, I really wanted to start with the Appalachian Trail just because I know through hiking such a mental challenge, and I know the added motivation of walking home is just such a driving mental factor that I knew that if I wanted to really put my whole heart into it, I just needed those extra factors to be in my way. And yeah, I've read a lot about the other through hiking trails, but I think starting on my home coast is the way to begin.
Did you do much hiking at all as a youngster? Is this the first time of any type of hike you've done? Have you done any sort of overnighters elsewhere?
I haven't really done overnights. It's been more of with the outdoor education I worked with. We did a lot of trips that we'd be camping out, and then we'd go do separate day hikes like the Continental Divide and things like that. But yeah, this will be my first overnight backpacking experience.
You ready for that first night when it gets all dark and you've got to get up to go to use the restroom in the middle of the night, or the privy in the middle of the night? That's a fun thing to do, I'll tell you. You'll enjoy that. Oh,
I can't wait. I can't wait for the whole experience.
Yeah. So as you know, it's between 3, maybe 4, 5, maybe 6, maybe 7 months. It's quite a long period of time. How are you able to take that time off work?
Yeah, so I'm a commercial offshore lobsterman. So my captain, when I first started with him, I let him know my intention that, I'm starting up with lobstering with you so I can make enough money to hike the Appalachian Trail. And I got lucky to have a captain who's pretty cool, and he's done a lot of backpacking trips and a lot of motorcycle trips across country. So he was 100% all for it.
Good on you for being straight, by the way. That's and not everybody is. So you stated your intentions. You were making the money, and you were going to do it because you wanted to do this. Do you think you'll go back to being a lobsterman when you come back, or are you going to do something else?
I haven't really made up my mind with that. My captain's told me, once I get back from the trail, my position will be open for me, and they'll hold it for me. But I haven't really. I'm trying to use the trail as an opportunity to kind of explore those options further, kind of figure things out a little.
Yeah, you'll have plenty of time to think about it. Let me tell you. You'll be walking by yourself for hours on end, and there'll be nothing but you and your thoughts. So you said you're already going to go. You said you're walking back to Maine, which is a lovely idea. I really like that idea, actually. So you are going Nobo. Did you ever consider going southbound or doing an flip flop, or as I call it, an oboe, out back and out again? Did you ever think of those things?
Yeah, so I considered the Sobo idea just based on the convenience of living in Maine and being able to just drive up to Katahdin and start from there. But
sure.
The flip-flop I didn't really put too much consideration into. I really wanted to be able to just go straight from one terminus to the other. I like the idea of the flip-flop, but it's just not for me. Maybe on another hike. But
so living close to Katahdin, how far away are you? You a few hours or what?
I'm about 2 hours, 2.5 hours probably.
Have you tried it? Have you been up there yet?
I have not. I've hiked a lot of the other New England 4,000 footers, and it was on my bucket list originally to hike Katahdin this summer. However, I was talking with a mentor of mine, and we were just speaking about it, and I said to him that I think it'd be really special to be living in Maine and having my first experience with Katahdin, hopefully being at the end of my Nobo attempt.
That's exactly what I was going to say to you. I think it's going to be particularly awesome for you because had you already done it, I'm not sure it would diminish it a great deal, but the mere fact that the first time you do it is the conclusion of an AT thru-hike will be fantastic for you. Just take my word for that. And anybody who ever tells you that it'll be fantastic for you. And how are you putting together the gear you'll be taking if you've done no overnighters before?
I'm trying to use as many resources as I can. I've been reading a lot of books, reading a lot of things that a lot of people like Jennifer Farr Davis has to say, reading what she kind of gear she puts into her opinions. And I go through the Trek a lot. I just kind of try and use as many resources available to me to be able to kind of compare gear and figure out what I'm going to need. And I mean, I have some camping experience, so I kind of know what I'm looking for in a backpack and what I'm looking for in a tent. But you haven't actually bought any of it yet? No, I actually have all my gear ready.
Oh, you have got your gear ready. What tent have you got?
I bought the Topper Spur.
Oh, right. I know that. That's a real popular one. Yep. Yeah, it's a real popular one. Yeah, cool. And how I'm sure the job you do actually gives you a lot of physical exercise anyway. So how are you preparing for the physicality of the hike? Because you mentioned the mental aspect. I'll come back to that in a minute. But it is a very, very, very physical endeavor. So how are you preparing for that?
Yeah, so honestly, over this summer, just based on the fact that I'm on the boat almost every day, sure. I've kind of been taking the just working hard approach. So I'm on the boat for probably usually roughly about 14, 15 hours a day being on my feet, walking up and down at the deck of the boat. So that prepares me, I think, a lot, especially with the sway of the boat. But I have a few sort of backpacking trips up in northern Maine planned, and possibly a trip down to the Smokies coming up in October. So just getting a lot of hiking in there, and there's a state park right next to where I live, so it gives me the opportunity there.
Yeah, and you're 21 for God's sake, so I mean you should be okay. I mean, if you're doing the physical work anyway, and being young, that whole thing. One thing I would say about some of the youngsters I met, they took a lot of risks, and quite a few of them got injured because of taking those risks. So just be aware, this trail can really trip you up, and you only have to fall once badly, and you're done. So just enjoy that part. Enjoy the physicality, but make sure you're very careful with how you approach it. And have you considered the mental aspect of the hike much? Have you thought about how you're going to cope with things when you get, and everybody does, you're going to get these really tough times. How are you going to cope with that, do you think? Yeah, that's
probably been one of the things I've thought about more than anything. So with my job, I'm a full-time offshore lobsterman, so I'm going through the winter and everything. And I've thought about it kind of just looking at it from the same aspect of being out on the boat where, I'm out here, I'm miserably cold, I'm getting rained on, I'm soaked, I'm sore, I'm, everything.
There's a big difference, Matthew, there is a big difference. You're getting paid for that. You're not getting paid for the AT.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. I'm just really trying to look at the AT from the perspective of, I'm not looking at it from the perspective of this is going to be a long vacation. I know this is going to be a grueling task ahead of me. And just doing a lot of visualization, just thinking about my end goal, trying to focus on why I'm out there and the reason that I decided to put myself in this miserable situation at points, just thinking about the things I plan on taking away from it and learning from it.
Well, I'm going to ask you about that in a minute, actually, as well. And how have you planned your money for this trip? Because as you know, you can never take enough money, but at the same time, you don't want to spend through a ton of money. Are you budgeting a certain amount per month?
Yeah, I've kind of just set myself I'm pretty good with money, in my own opinion, overall. Right. So I've just set myself a bank account aside that I'm putting money into, and just, I'm planning on avoiding town for the most part if I can, other than resupply. So I think I'll be able to try and budget my money pretty well.
The occasional shower is very welcome, let me tell you.
Oh, I'm sure.
if not for you, but for your companions. So you might want to go into town every now and then.
Yeah, I got to be considerate.
Yeah, but you think you'll have enough money to get through it? That's good, because that's another thing that really trips people up, not having enough money to do it. And what do you think it is about you, your mindset or your determination, that you can beat those odds of the 1 in 4 who finish? Really, it's 3 out of 4 fail. So, that's not fair. Not they fail, they just don't get to the end. So, what do you think the strengths of you have that's going to help you beat those odds?
Oh man, as I feel like it's a really simplistic answer. But I'm just pretty stubborn.
That's a good thing.
I think, especially like this offshore lobstering job was my first time ever getting into the industry, and I ended up being on a boat with somebody who had kind of a reputation for being pretty hardcore with it.
Yeah.
So I think just going into it, kind of, I'd say the 3 to 1 odds against me are kind of put me as the underdog, and I feel like I kind of went into this job as that, and I just think I'm able to see a goal that I have set for myself, and I'm able to push through whatever I need to do to be able to get to that goal.
But you're a 21-year-old guy. I wouldn't have been able to articulate that as well as that when I was 51. I think having your eye on the goal in which the way you have, I think you seem very, very clear-eyed about it, and I think that's great about you. And I think that book that you read, that Paul Stutzman book, is opens your eyes to a lot of things about the trail, and I highly recommend that to anybody. And I say I will be reading it on the show, but really, you sound like you've really got your head screwed on as far as this is concerned, so that's really helpful. And talking about, are you going to get logistical support for when you're out there? Do you have family that's going to send you packages, or are you going to resupply from the trail?
I've thought about that. I've read a lot into the logistics of supply drops. I'm probably going to be doing some smaller ones, just setting boxes up ahead of time and
Sure.
Communicating with my mother when I can to be able to get those packages sent out. But I don't plan on going through the whole process of setting up boxes for every supply point. I plan on going mostly through the town resupply.
Yeah, that was one of my takeaways when I did it, that I thought it was a lot on my wife to do that. And frankly, you can resupply pretty much most of the way up there in town. So I certainly think it's worth thinking about. And what part of the trail are you most looking forward to?
Oh gosh, there's so much. There's one part of the trail that stands out to me more than anything. For some reason, just something about the Grayson Highlands, looking at those rolling hills and all the fields of horses.
It's awesome.
It's such a picturesque idea of the AP. So that's probably one of the highlights I'm looking forward to.
Nice.
Also, there's something really special to me about Fontana Dam crossing over into the Smokies. That's another section I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, that's quite intimidating as you walk across the dam and you see the Smokies growing in front of you. But it's quite a thing, I tell you. It really is. And what about things you're not looking forward to, or things you might be concerned about?
Yeah, this I don't want to sound overconfident. There's not a ton that I'm like really, really concerned about. I've read a lot about different hikers having bad experiences with other thru hikers.
All right.
And trying to deal with the challenges of all of us coinciding on one trail, trying to head north together, and having all these different personality types. So I think it'll be kind of a challenge to be able to be in that situation that's going to be so difficult, and trying to blend in and gel with these other personality types.
You'll find out the easiest thing you do, Matthew, I promise you. You'll get on there, you sound friendly, you sound chatty, I think you'll be fine. You just go in there and be open to people, and they're going to be open to you, and they're going to want you to succeed as well. That's the thing that just shocked me, how everybody wants you to succeed almost as much as they want themselves to succeed. So, be open to that, and you'll really enjoy that part of it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, last couple of things. If there was one thing that you think might be able to keep you off the trail, because you're not going for another 6 months, what do you think it might be?
Probably the only thing I really foresee is if I get injured working on the boat or something like that happens. I'm not really
easy enough. Don't do it. Don't get injured then. You're okay then.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I'm not really worried about. I have my finances pretty well set up. Like Good. I said, I have the gear ready to go. Good. I don't have any. There's not even a sliver in my heart that says, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't do this."
Good.
It's so unless I lose a leg, you'll see me out there next summer.
That's one of the things, Matthew. I read I read just the day before I went in Dahlonega, before I went to Amicalola Falls. I read the foreword of some book. I'm not sure what it said, whose it was, but it said it's got to be the thing you want to do more than anything else this summer. And it really was the thing I wanted to do more than anything else. And it sounded to me like it's the thing you want to do more than anything else next summer. So that's I think that stands you in good stead.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those feelings. Like I was reading in Jennifer Farr Davis's book, Becoming Odessa. She said that there was something about the trail that just felt like it was a calling to her, and I really feel that deep down with myself as well.
Cool. Well, you did actually speak earlier on about how things you want to take away from the trail. So, what do you hope to get from this experience?
So, from this experience, I'm really hoping to get away a better feeling of self-confidence. I have a little doubt in myself when it comes to a lot of things, and I feel like being able to be out in the woods and survive, take care of myself for 6 months, it'll be a really big sign of growth for myself personally, and a really big stepping stone into adulthood, a little more than I already am.
You're a bloody lobsterman. You're an adult already, I tell you. You do a bloody hard job. So give yourself a break, man. You've shown a commitment that a lot of youngsters don't show. So you're going to be fine. I think you're going to be fine. It. So one last thing, which I ask everybody, will you come back on the show and tell us how it went, whether you finish or not?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
for sure.
Okay, buddy. Well, I only wish you only the best, and hopefully I'll see you out there. I'm starting about 2 weeks ahead of you, so you'll probably catch up with me on about your third day. So I'll be the fat bloke going slowly. So look out for me. Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay. Well, good talk to you, and I just wish you absolutely the best. All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve. Looking forward to seeing you on the trail.
Okay. Take it easy. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Isn't he a trip? He became a commercial lobsterman to fund his dream. That isn't like getting a paper round now, is it? And what a boss he's got. I really warmed to Matthew and his attitude to the trail. I hope that he, and of course all of our class of 2019 hikers, go all the way. I'll certainly be looking out for Matthew as he breezes past me out there next year. Matthew also talked about Hiking Through by Paul Stutzman, one of my favourite trail books. When I asked you all for book suggestions, several of you suggested Paul's book, so I gave it a go, and guess what? He said yes. I'm so grateful, and I look forward to getting Paul's story to you in the future. Now, a short chapter from the year we seized the day. We're on to day number 20, and miracle of miracles, I didn't have to use the beeper once this week. That's probably because Colin didn't say too much. I'll see you all next week. Chapter 21, Day 20, Reliegos to Lyon. Colin, almost there. What could possibly go wrong now? The next day, at a place called Mansilla de las Mulas, we find ourselves in the middle of green fields of corn, gravity-fed with concrete irrigation channels. We are almost out of the desert. We stop and gape at a service station like a couple of hillbillies. Gosh, pups, looks like them petrol pumps we done seen on television. Hills rise from the plains, and beyond are the shadows of mountains painted on a mauve dawn. Mountains! After the Meseta, I'd slaughter a mountain right now. In the bodega there is another pilgrim. He's wearing yellow and blue lycra, and his jersey has Lance Armstrong written on the back. His crutch bulges like he has a bag of potatoes down there. His bike is parked in the doorway, blocking the entrance. Another fellow traveller on the spiritual journey. I mark his name down in my little black book for when I'm with God on Judgment Day. Later that day we reached Lyon, one of the largest and most ancient cities on the Camino. The outskirts remind me of the suburbs of Perth where I live. There are car dealerships and agricultural machinery, chain-link fences, bay and guard dogs, and market garden. The sender wilts to a narrow strip of unprotected bitumen that parallels the main highway to Burgos. Once the danger for pilgrims was being attacked by bandits. Today you risk finishing your pilgrimage being hosed off the radiator grill of a 20-wheel Volvo Globetrotter at the main roundabout at Puerto Centro.
Ellie, a city at last. Cole stops me at the summit of Portillo Hill on the outskirts of Lyon. Still 3 kilometres away, a stunning panorama of city sprawl engulfs the horizon. Home to around 185,000 people, Lyon, as a city, eclipses any we've seen so far in Spain. As we stand side by side, Colin points across the rooftops towards the distant cathedral spires. The infamous Meseta lived up to its name and surpassed all expectations, but we won. With the final day of the barren stretch behind us, we walk the remainder of the way through the busy streets of Lyon, silent and triumphant. The next big city will be Santiago. It is the Europe I know from guidebooks and travel programmes, the Europe I've seen and imagined myself in. Apart from landing in Paris, my experience of Europe has consisted mostly of the modest villages and rural hamlets found along the Camino. But in Lyon I find more. Ancient architecture, stunning stonework, classic cobblestone causeways and alleys, grand plazas, fashion boutiques, coffee houses, and a towering cathedral that simply defies description. A city at last. I never thought I'd be so happy to see a traffic jam. Leaving the crowded albergues, menus de dia, and military-style sleeping quarters behind, Colin and I check into an affordable hotel, rewarding ourselves with a touch of comfort, clean, crisp bed linen, private ensuite and late checkout. We are back in a big city, spoiled with a selection of food and wine, history and culture, shopping, sights and sounds. Lyon feels as close and as far from the Meseta as it could possibly be. Among the hum of city traffic, the buzz of crowded streets, and the endless parades of people, I am home again. But better still, I am at home in Europe. On arriving at the hotel, I shower, hand wash some clothes in the bathtub with the remainder of the shampoo from the miniature complimentary bottle, shower again, then hang my clothes out to dry over the handrail of the terrace balcony. Hair is washed and dried, teeth cleaned. Wearing a fresh set of clothes, I slip my raw meat feet into Birkenstock sandals and do what any woman do when faced with spare time in Europe, go shopping. For the next 24 hours, Colin and I don't see each other. I spend most of the time cafe loitering, journaling, people watching from the outdoor wine bars, catching up on emails and exploring the many side streets and laneways of the central district. Eventually, I managed to get the local scoop on the city's largest shopping complex and department store, El Corte Inglés, along with a nice young Spanish escort who walks me 6 blocks to the door. I hope the store might be my best opportunity to find a pair of Teva hiking sandals. I need to replace my boots after wearing through them in Castrogeries, and Tevas are apparently what all pro-pilgrims wear. My hopes are dashed when the attendant tells me the store only stocks the brand to size 10. Due to the enormity of my feet, I am forced to settle for something else, something plain and beige but very comfortable. With new hiking attire, I head toward the Carrillo to post home the boots that have all but crippled me, with full intentions of cashing in on the warranty when I return. The salesman assured me they'd last 15 to 20 years. He'd obviously never walked the Spanish Meseta in a heatwave. I'd be lying if I said I was sorry to see them go.